Welcome to Life and DNA with Amanda Renee. I'm so glad you joined me today. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to Life and DNA with Amanda Renee. I'm Amanda. I'm going to hop on here today. I hadn't talked about narcissism in a while. Something happened recently that made it pop back up into just making me think about it again, and so I wanted to discuss it since it's been a while. But first, if you're watching on YouTube, if you would like the video and subscribe to my channel, I'd appreciate it. And if you are listening on a podcast, if you'd scroll down to the bottom and rate my podcast for me, I'd appreciate that too. Thank you. If you are new to my podcast or to my channel and you haven't heard my story, I will give you a quick, brief background into why I even discuss narcissism in the first place. About the year 2020, my sisters and I finally, or I was in my 40s already, finally realized that our mother is a narcissist, and not just any narcissist, but a covert, malignant narcissist. And it so covert that it took us all that time to figure it out. A few other people in our lives, they didn't really know what name to put on it, but they knew something was off. Our husbands especially, and but we figured out and got a name put to it. We watched, I don't know how many videos between all of us on narcissism. I had bought this book, but hadn't actually read much of it at the time, but I'm going back and reading it now. It is The Human Magnet Syndrome by Ross Rosenberg. I've watched lots of his videos, and I bought this book back then when we were first watching videos on it, but now I'm actually reading the book, and because I was watching a video of his the other day and I remembered I had it, and I wanted to see, haven't gotten to the chapter where he talks about the topic that he was discussing in the video yet, but yeah, so anyway, my sisters and I discovered this. The way we discovered it was my sisters, two of them, married men in the Air Force, and we were not close growing up. The two middle ones, I have three sisters, I'm the oldest, and the two middle ones were very, very, very close, and they married Air Force friends in the Air Force, and they moved off. We, like I said, we were not close growing up. They would kind of stick together and antagonize me, and I was, the oldest. I was put in charge all the time. So, and firstborns tend to be bossy anyway. But then I was put in a position of authority over all of my siblings most of my life, and that, of course, didn't help foster a good relationship with us. And it wasn't until we were in our 20s that we even got along, for the most part. And then, like I said, they married Air Force guys. They were off having their kids in other states, and I would go, visit them, and they would come back and visit sometimes. But we weren't super close. I'm not a person, like I've said before, that likes to be on the phone. So we just didn't keep in communication a lot. Well, then both of their husbands got stationed just 2.5 hours away from here, from where we grew up. And so we were able to get closer. We all had kids close to the same age. Some of us right at the same age. And so we were able to see each other a lot. And we became closer and started talking and, came to each other's kids' birthday parties and things like that. And it was then that we realized what our mother had been doing pretty much all our lives, I believe, looking back. Um, she would like pit us against each other, and in very subtle ways so that you don't realize what's happening. We realized once we started talking to each other, and texting, and if, say for example, one of the things that really tipped us off that something just odd was going on, if one of us had a birthday party, we would be going, so we would be asking questions about what time, when do we need to get up there, all those kinds of things. And we would get on the conversation, is mom and the boys, mom and our brothers coming, and our stepdad. And then they would tell us no, because they rarely travel more than a few minutes anywhere, so they wouldn't drive up to my nieces and nephews' birthday parties, hardly ever. And so they would tell us what reason they gave for not coming. Well, I would have talked to my mom also, and then she will give me a totally different reason why she's not coming, completely unrelated. And so we started noticing this happening a lot, and it was odd. So we're like, does she just not want to come? And she doesn't want to say that, so she just makes up lies, and she can't even keep her lies straight. So she tells, like, there's 4 of us, there would be 3 or 4 different lies going around of reasons, excuses why she wasn't going. It was things like that. And also she would call me and find out what was going on in my life, and always drop things she had heard from my sisters that were going on in their lives. But when I would talk to my sisters, I would hear a slightly different story about what actually happened in their life. And then she would call them at another point and twist or out and out lie about what I had said was going on in my life. And we just started kind of piecing all of these things together, and realizing just little things. We couldn't trust anything that she said. Like, and if you tried calling her out on it, she would get very defensive and turn it on you. The other thing, she has a church, and I use air quotes because I don't really believe that a person that lies as much as she does can actually be a legitimate preacher. I just don't believe that that's possible. But she preaches at a building and calls herself a preacher. Anyway, I went to her church up until the end of the last half of 2019. That's where I kind of raised our kids. That's where we went. My husband and I first got married. He quit going a long time before I did. And I think that is kind of what opened my eyes. When he was there, I think I felt, 1, distracted, and 2, protective of, like, oh, I don't want to say that there's anything wrong going on because, then he'll think bad of my mom or something like that. So I think when he was coming, I was a little distracted that way. And when he stopped coming, my eyes were kind of opened. My mother thinks she has this gift of poetry, and that God gives her these poems pretty much every day for years, I think decades at this point. They're all extremely, and I'm not saying this to be mean, I am just being honest, that they are very childish. They're all extremely similar, same wording, phrases, mostly the same scriptures backing them up, all very, I don't know what's the word, like sickly positive. Like, there's never anything negative or deep in them. It's all just very surface, very fluffy, I think, and very childlike. And so her thing that she does on Sundays is she'll read that and then kind of go through and kind of expound on that. What I noticed sitting listening to it is that she had an almost predictable way of going about it and like going to a climax. And it would sometimes be like, oh, that something was going on in her life. She'll never give details. She's always extremely vague about it because typically she's making it sound like way worse or more big of a deal than what it really was. But if she doesn't give details, then you don't know that it was not really an issue. And she would either get angry or get extremely emotional and start crying and try to trigger that in an emotional reaction out of the audience. I am a very empathetic person, and so if someone else cries, it usually triggers something in me. But I noticed that I was getting very uncomfortable every time she would get emotional like that. And I finally realized it's because I was being manipulated into feeling those emotions. It wasn't a genuine feeling that I was feeling about what she was saying. It was a manipulation that she was trying to get a reaction. And I had read a book about the Holy Spirit, and it had said in that book that when you are listening to someone speak, the Holy Spirit in you will know when that it's actually from God. And if you have a negative physical reaction to what is being said, that 9 times out of 10, that person is speaking in the flesh. They're not speaking from the Spirit. And I would get that reaction every time she would say things like that, as she would get like that. And so I started putting 2 and 2 together. It was like God was just slowly opening my eyes to what was going on. It took me years. I mean, it's sad and pathetic to say now, but it took me years to finally realize what was going on. And I just noticed every single Sunday it followed the same pattern. It would rise to, an emotional place, either angry or sad or something. And I would get sick to my stomach, like nervous. I got to the point the last, I don't know how long, where I could not even look at her. I couldn't even look at her when she preached, especially when she got to the emotional side. I would look at the floor or look at my kids who were sitting next to me. I could not look at her because I knew my mirroring response would make me tear up just out of mirroring, not because I actually felt it. And it was just, I was so repulsed by it that I couldn't even stand it anymore. And then we would all eat lunch together afterwards. And we would all sit at the table because there's only like a handful of people that even go there. And we would all sit around the table and eat. And I would listen to her take digs at the people sitting there. There was a nice elderly Hispanic couple that went, and she would say things. She would say it really nicely and really with a sweet, lilt in her voice, but she was saying something rude, and I would call her out on it, or she would say something rude to me. I would call her out on it, and then her demeanor would just change, and she would be like, I can't believe you would think that I would mean that. That's not what I meant. Her attitude would change drastically, but she would do it every single week. She would say something rude to somebody at that table or multiple people at that table, and every single week. And I had started to get tired of it, would call her out on it, and then she would get upset. So all of that was being pieced together. A lot of times she would be telling a story, and my brothers would interrupt her and be like, that's not what happened. That's not how that went. That's not what they said. And call her out on stuff. And then she would get mad about that also. So I'm like, okay, she's lying to me and my sisters about things. Now she's lying when she's telling me stories about things. Nothing was ever completely the truth. It was always either an out and out lie or a twist on what actually happened or what was said. And I understand, some people tell stories and they exaggerate. That's one thing. But it wasn't, some of it was that, but some of it was just like it's not even what happened. And so I started piecing all of that together. She finally got tired of me calling her out on it, and everything came to a head it was like a Monday or a Tuesday, when she called me at home when my husband was at work and started going off on me. She was like asking me what was going on with me, and I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. There's nothing going on with me. And she's like, there's something going on with you. And I told her about that she keeps hurting my feelings. She'll say those rude things and that hurts my feelings. And she out and out refused to hear that and said, no, that's not it. That's not what it is. So it's like, yes, it is. You keep hurting my feelings when you say this, this, and this. And she was like, that's not what it is. And then she told me that maybe I should leave the church. And so I was like, okay, I'll pray about that. And I did. I took 2 weeks. I don't think I went to church the 1 week in between. I was like on my knees praying about that. And God did show me to leave. And then she acted kind of, when I went to tell her that after church that second Sunday, I said, yep, I've prayed about it and we're leaving. And then she acted like she wasn't surprised, like she knew I wasn't going to. And I'm like, now knowing what I know about narcissists and everything that I've learned, I know exactly what happened. I was calling her out. I was no longer giving her supply. Before, I thought she was wonderful. I thought she was great, and I believed every word that came out of her mouth. And I wasn't doing that anymore. And I was actually calling her out on stuff, which I have never done and don't do very often to people. But I was doing that now. So I wasn't giving her narcissistic supply anymore. I wasn't being her little flying monkey, perpetuating all of her lies and how wonderful she was. I was calling her out on her crap, and she didn't like it. And so she pretty much pushed me out. But I do believe, she had a narcissistic part in it. But I do believe God was trying to get me out. I honestly believe God wanted me out a long time ago. I had thought about leaving that church multiple times. But I had a small job there with a small paycheck, and I was worried I would lose the only income that I had, because as a stay-home homeschool mom, it's very hard to have any kind of income for myself. And I was honestly scared of losing that little tiny bit of money. And I was just afraid of what that would do for me. But God told me, I'm going to handle it. I'm going to take care of it. Give it to me. Don't worry about it. Because he wanted me out of there, I think, worse than I even wanted out of there. And now that I know everything that I've learned since then, I am always so thankful. And honestly, we left in July. By the end of January, beginning of February, I already had a new job at my new church. So God did provide that. But anyway, all of that to say that the topic I wanted to give, and there were multiple other things. Once we left the church, like my son went to the hospital a couple months later. She didn't even pray over him. She came to visit him for just a few minutes and then griped about spending money on him and didn't pray for him. She said she wasn't coming to any of our kids' birthday parties anymore, or any birthday parties. She even said she didn't want to do Thanksgiving or anything anymore. She since gone back on that, but I do not go to Thanksgiving there. I take the kids Christmas Eve during the day to give them that experience, because I'm not going to take it away from them. But yeah, I spend Thanksgiving with my dad's family, and it was always a pain in the butt to split that day between the two families anyway. So anyway, there was a lot that went down. She blew up at my two middle sisters, just out and out yelled at them, and then turned around and played victim and said that they were yelling at her and made it sound like she was like having some kind of heart attack or something, freaking out when it was they told her the same thing I told her, that she hurt their feelings about something, and she went ballistic. So lots and lots of things that finally added up. I realized I had been gaslit my entire life. I've learned from cousins and other things on my dad's side of the family how close my dad and I had been when I was little. I have no memory of it. Honestly, I used to pride myself on how great my memory was. Like, I could remember certain things from my childhood. As soon as I found out that I can't trust any memory from my childhood, they all basically went away. Unless someone says or does something that maybe stirs one up, I can't really remember hardly anything from my childhood anymore. I don't know if that's like my brain being protective of me, or if it's just that I can't trust anything, so I just dumped it all. I have no idea. But I've learned from some cousins on my dad's side that, you know, I used to spend all day, lots of time with my dad when I was really little, back when he used to farm, and I have no memory of that. I grew up believing my dad didn't like me based off of things my mom told me, and I trusted her. And so I had that belief up until just a few years ago that my dad just didn't like me. And now we're getting closer. There's still a lot of questions I want to ask him, but thankfully we have a relationship now. But yeah, it's been kind of mind-blowing to realize that I can't trust anything my own mother says. I can't trust half of what I've ever been told in the past. There's a story that she tells, and I knew this one was wrong, but it wasn't until I talked to my dad how I realized how wrong it was. At my mom's house, there is a pool that is mostly underground, but part of it's above ground. And we dug that pool. My mom went out and started it. She got angry about something and just decided she was going to dig a pool. But she will tell you to this day, from her little pulpit, that she dug that pool herself. She dug the whole thing by herself. And that is not the truth. Not the truth at all. We all helped, even when she had, when part of it was dug and she gave up and was going to college and seeing my stepdad. My dad was home with us and we were working on it and laying sod around the backyard and all of that, putting the fence up around it. Yeah, so that's just the biggest example I have of her gaslighting, and that's apparently what she did my whole life, and I didn't understand it. The thing that Mr. Rosenberg was talking about, it blew my mind that the video popped up for me to listen to, because it was talking about induced conversation. And so I watched the videos on it, but I had just had my mom try that with me, and I'll explain that in a second. But induced conversation is when you're trying to pull away from the narcissist and they are trying to gain a hook back in you or control back over you, because that's really what they long for. And so they try to, make it where, you left something at my place, or you need to come get it, or I have something for the kids. Do you want to come get it? Like, she kept doing that. Even though I would tell her my schedule, she would want to meet up on the days when I wasn't in town, and she knew I wasn't in town. It's annoying and it's weird, but he said it's a way that they try to still have control over you. And he said, just don't engage. He has a method he calls, what was it? Observe. It was like observe, don't engage, something like that. He says you don't want to get in the wrestling ring because they are masters at wrestling. And you don't even want to get in the ring. So your basic thing is to just not even have the conversation. But if you do, go in. Don't let them let you get emotional. Don't let them get you angry or riled up, because then they win. That's what they want. They want a reaction from you. And so I was proud of myself. I did not give her the reaction she wanted. I will pull up the text messages and tell you exactly what she said, because it's been a few days, so I don't remember all of it. Oh, yeah. So she texted me one afternoon, which happened to be one of my busiest, we were coming back from Tulsa. So we were driving from Tulsa. She didn't know we were gone. She does, however, know that I typically have staff meetings on Mondays. And that's where I should have been, was at a staff meeting. But she doesn't care. And she texted, "Hi, my beautiful firstborn. I know you hate talking, so I'll just text a hello and I love you all." Okay. That might seem totally benign to you because you don't know my mother. And so she tops it with a compliment, and then she jabs with a dig. "I know you hate talking, so I'll just text you hello." So I said, "Hello, we love you too." And that's all I said back. I gave her a couple of hearts because she put hearts in hers. Exchanged a couple emojis. Then the next morning, when she knows I'm going to be homeschooling my kids, then I get the text, "I was hoping you'd say we could talk. I miss you and love you so very much." So I didn't respond correctly, according to her. She was hoping I would just drop everything and call her. And, give her a time, I guess, that I could call. She didn't know I was in the truck and couldn't, but she should have known because I should have been in a staff meeting. She should have known that I was busy. Mondays are horrible for me. But she doesn't pay attention. And so there's the, "Oh, you let me down. I'm so disappointed. I don't care anymore." What she doesn't realize is that doesn't work on me anymore. I don't care that she's disappointed in me. Don't care. All it does is just tick me off now. So I texted her back, "I wasn't able to talk. I miss you and love you too." Then she's like, "Call me sometime when you're able. I haven't heard your voice in a long time." Okay. But I have not called her because I watched that video not long after I got that. I knew what that was. I knew it was a trap. One, so she can sound disappointed that I didn't call her sooner, and upset that I didn't want to hear her voice too, and also because then she would call my sisters and tell them that I called her. Not that she wouldn't tell them that she told me to call her. She would just tell them that I called her and make it sound like I did it all on my own. And, "Oh, aren't we making progress?" No, we're not. So, yeah. I will probably be talking about this book more in the next couple weeks, because I'm hoping to finish it soon. And then I'll go into more detail on some of the tactics of the narcissists and how to handle yourself if you're dealing with something like that. I pray you're not, because it really sucks. It's not a fun place to be. I would love to have a mom that I had a great relationship with, and, you know, my kids could have an easy, great relationship with, but the digs that she gives to me, she also does to my children. And they're old enough now that they notice it. So while I don't keep her from them, we don't see her as often as, growing up, I would have thought that I would. She always said that she was going to be this wonderful grandma growing up, and that is not what we got. I grew up, once my parents divorced, I was 18, and she had my two brothers when I was 19 and 21. I was going to college, working part-time, and helping her with those boys for years. I was like a second parent to them for years, and she's turned them against us. And I always used to say, I'm like, oh, well, I'm really going to get paid back when I have kids, because I've, watched my brothers for years and years and years, all while missing out on work or missing out on college classes, because I had to take half the classes I normally would have taken to watch my brothers while she was in class, because she was going to college at the same time. And that didn't happen. I can count on one hand how many times she babysat my kids. So that didn't happen. And, didn't help me when I first, except for having our daughter stay with her overnight, while I was having my son. Didn't come help us or, anything when I got home. So yeah, it was just not the relationship that growing up, what I was told I would have, when we got older. It has not been like that at all. And, now it's even worse, because I don't want to talk to her, because I can't believe anything that comes out of her mouth. So I'm like, what's the point? She's going to either try to play on my emotions, try to get information out of me to tell my sisters or anybody else that'll listen, or, she's just going to try and mess with my emotions, and I don't need any of that. So, except for running into her at Walmart occasionally, I try to avoid really having a lot of interaction with her. What else was I going to say about that? There was something I was going to say about that. Oh, the turning people against you. My stepdad, my brothers are against us. Pretty sure. There was a lady that we were close to, at her church. That's what I was going to tell you. Was the God part of it. That is, I believe, where a lot of the malignant part comes in. She uses her position as preacher to manipulate people and to lie to people and to make herself feel better than people. If you were to sit in on her messages and listen to them, you would definitely get the feeling that you could never, ever, ever read your Bible as much as her or pray as much as her. There's just no way that you could. And she will often, she did this when I went to church there, and I would listen to sermons all the time when I cleaned the house and did things with the kids. And she would be up there speaking, and it was like she just wished there was someone else that she could discuss God all the time with, and that had visions for the future of what God had for them and things they were learning, to discuss that with you. And then I would be like, hello, I do all those things too, and I have things. And then I would tell her what I believed God was showing me and what I was studying and what I was learning, and she would either totally change the subject back to her, or one time she just out and out told me, yeah, I don't really see that happening. I'm like, that's what I believe God's showing me. You're not supposed to be the one seeing it happening. It's for me. She just out and out said she didn't believe it. Like, I've never told her that about, and she has some crazy, crazy things that she would say God told her. She would, when we first started going to church there was a lot of elderly people, and when they kind of started dying off, and she would call me to tell me, the first words out of her mouth, right after telling me that so-and-so passed away, was about her. She twisted it back to her. Every conversation you ever have with her goes back to her. Every conversation. But about someone dying, like it was, one of them was a relative of mine, and well, I think I was related distantly to most people there, and she would just tell me, and then back on her, like, oh, they're gonna want me to do the funeral, and poor her. Not about the family that just lost a loved one. Like, only a narcissist. Only I didn't know that's what it was back then. And I guess not recently, sometime last year, my sister was had interviewed for a job, and we all knew she had interviewed. I knew she had gotten the job. Apparently she forgot to tell our mother that she got the job. And my mom calls me and asks me about it. She didn't call the daughter that had the job interview, because you can't just go to the source. You have to go around for whatever reason. And so she called me to tell me, or ask me, if my sister got the job. And I was like panicked at first. Like, oh crap, does she want her to know? So I finally gave in, was like, yes, she got the job. And then I texted my sister, and I'm like, I'm so sorry, Mom. I waited a few minutes. I think I was taking a shower. And then when I got out of the shower, I texted my sister, and I was like, I'm so sorry. Mom called. She directly asked me if you got the job, and I told her yes. And she was like, oh my gosh. I just got off the phone with Mom, and she called and said, God told her that I got the job. I was like, what? It wasn't God that told her. It was me. So, yeah. To me, the using God to manipulate people and to make them think that she's some super spiritual person that she isn't, that's the malignant part to me. That's like, I hate that. As a Christian, I hate that. It's horrible to me. I think that's worse than pretty much anything else that she does, is the manipulation, the making people think that she is just super spiritual and wonderful and hears from God. And I doubt every time that she's ever told me that now. And if she tells me anything about it, I can't trust that. And I've had to seriously, I don't know, go back to square one with my relationship with God. And I'm still trying to, not that I was ever mad or didn't believe in God or anything like that, but just to get her voice and her ways just out of my head. I've tried to, and I'm still trying to, just go back to square one and build that my own personal relationship with God, where it's doesn't look anything like her and her ways or her words or any of that. And that's been really difficult for me, trying to figure out who I am as a person, because I was lied to, manipulated, gaslit, made to be someone I wasn't for years and years and years, and then also lied to about God on some things. And so, yeah, it's been a journey, and probably will be for a while. And unless you've gone through that, I think it's hard for people to understand. There's people in my life that don't really get it, get how hard all of that is. To think that 40 something years of your life was a lie, that's kind of a lot. I've gotten through the hardest part of it, but it's still something I'm struggling with. Like I said, especially my relationship with God, trying to get back to where I used to be, something I struggle with. But I am hoping with finishing this book, because a lot of what Mr. Rosenberg does is help people. He was someone that was raised by a narcissist. He was in relationships with narcissists, and he had to figure out, as a therapist himself, how to help people that were like him. And I'll go into more detail on that next week probably. But so I'm really hoping that there's answers in here and through his videos and stuff on just even figuring out who I really am, how I can heal from this and not pass it on to the next generation, because that's what he said typically happens. My grandmother was pretty much a narcissist also, so I can, see where my mom got it, but still doesn't excuse any of her behaviors. But so yeah, if you are struggling with anything like that, let me know. Comment on the video or message me on Instagram. Let me know how you've handled it, or if you've just even found out that there is a narcissist in your life. I would love to hear about that. And I will be back next week. Also, don't forget, on my Patreon at Life and DNA with Amanda Renee, I have 2 book clubs going. One, a high school classics book club. We're talking about reading and discussing The Count of Monte Cristo, the unabridged version. That's my daughter and I. She's in high school, and we are going through that. So if you are a homeschool mom and you or your child would like to discuss that with us, there's a chat on Patreon. It's just $5 a month. And then I have a Studious Wives book club where I'm going through The Empowered Wife by Laura Doyle. And I am going through that. That one's really good too. So yeah, that one's $10 a month. I usually have videos every couple weeks. And yeah, I'd love it if you join me. But otherwise, I will see you next time. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and I will see you next week. Bye. Thank you for joining me today on Life and DNA with Amanda Renee. Come back next week, and I'll have a new episode. Bye.